Imagine being so dangerous to the political
status quo that the United States Congress actively debates your lyrics, yet so uniquely gifted that you become the undisputed best-selling artist of an entire decade. This isn't just a music career. It is a war story. Marshall Mathers. Slim Shady, Eminem. He is a man divided by three distinct identities. He is the underdog who dragged himself out of poverty, conquered a genre that wasn't built for him, almost lost his life to addiction, and returned to claim the throne. But how did an isolated high school dropout from the trailer parks of Detroit rewrite the rules of modern culture? Today, we are breaking down the entire, unfiltered story of Eminem, from his traumatic childhood and underground battle rap days, to his massive global peak, his near-fatal overdose, and his conceptual modern eras. This is the complete biography of hip-hop's ultimate survivor. Hit that subscribe button right now, and let's head back to where the fire was first lit. To understand the rage that fuels Eminem's music, you have to understand his roots. Marshall Bruce Mathers III was born on October 17, 1972, in St. Joseph, Missouri. He never knew his father, who abandoned the family when Marshall was just an infant. This left him to be raised entirely by his teenage mother, Deborah Nelson. His early life was defined by extreme instability, bouncing constantly between Missouri and various working-class neighborhoods in Michigan. They rarely stayed in one house for more than a few months. For Marshall, this meant being the perpetual new kid at every school, isolated, quiet, and a prime target for severe bullying. When Marshall was just 9 years old, a bully beat him so severely in a school bathroom that he suffered a brain hemorrhage and spent several days in a coma. To cope, Marshall retreated into comic books, storytelling, and an unexpected tool that would shape his future, the dictionary. By the time he was 12, Marshall and his mother settled on the east side of Detroit, a hyper-segregated, economically depressed area bordered by 8 Mile Road. It was here that he discovered hip-hop. The moment he heard Ice-T's track Reckless, a switch flipped. He began using the moniker M&M, which later evolved into Eminem, despite failing the 9th grade 3 times due to truancy and dropping out at 17. Marshall's mastery of the language was undeniable. He spent hours sitting in his room, flipping through dictionaries and practicing complex, multisyllabic rhyme schemes. But entering the Detroit battle rap scene as a white teenager in the early 1990s meant facing immense skepticism. Hip-hop was a black art form born out of black struggle. And Marshall knew he had to be twice as clever and completely fearless just to get the mic. He spent his nights performing at the legendary hip-hop shop, hosted by a charismatic local rapper named Proof.
Marshall's ability to dismantle opponents with ruthless punchlines earned him underground respect. He joined early local groups like Soul Intent and D12, proving his pen could hold its own against anyone in the city. In 1995, Marshall's life shifted with the birth of his daughter, Haley Jade, with his high school sweetheart, Kim Scott. The pressure to provide was paralyzing. Stuck working minimum wage cooking jobs for just $5.50 an hour, he poured every ounce of his energy into his debut independent album, Infinite, released in 1996. The album was a commercial disaster, selling only a few hundred copies out of the trunk of his car. Underground critics mocked him, claiming he lacked identity and sounded too much like Nas or AZ. Devastated, broke, and evicted from his apartment, Marshall hit absolute rock bottom, culminating in a failed suicide attempt. It was in that pitch-black moment that a realization struck. Trying to be a clean, politically correct rapper wasn't working. He had nothing left to lose. It was time to unleash the monster. He created an alter ego, Slim Shady. Slim was everything Marshall couldn't be in polite society: vulgar, violent, darkly humorous, and completely unhinged. Through Slim Shady, Marshall channeled his poverty, his anger toward his mother, and his frustrations into a venomous caricature. He recorded the Slim Shady EP, a raw, shocking project that sounded unlike anything else in hip-hop. In 1997, he traveled to Los Angeles to compete in the Rap Olympics. He fought his way to the finals, but ultimately placed second. Marshall was furious, but destiny intervened. An intern from Interscope Records grabbed a copy of the tape and passed it to the co-founder of the label, Jimmy Iovine, who immediately played it for the legendary producer Dr. Dre. The moment Dre put the tape in, his jaw dropped. He didn't care about Eminem's background. He just knew the kid was a lyrical genius. Despite heavy pushback from executives, Dre trusted his gut, signed Marshall to Aftermath Entertainment, and history was set in motion. In December of 2007, the lifestyle caught up with him. Eminem consumed a near-lethal dose of methadone. He collapsed on his bathroom floor and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors informed him his organs were shutting down. He was less than 2 hours away from dying. He survived, but had to temporarily relearn basic motor skills and speech. Looking at his children, he realized he had to make a definitive choice: get clean or die. In early 2008, Marshall entered rehab. He spent months painfully detoxing, replacing chemical dependencies with a highly disciplined running regimen. On April 20th, 2008, Marshall Mathers achieved complete sobriety, a milestone he proudly celebrates every single year. Clean and re-energized, Eminem stepped back into the studio, learning how to write rhymes sober for the first time. After shaking off the creative rust with 2009's Relapse, he dropped Recovery in 2010. Recovery was an emotional triumph. Hit singles like Not Afraid and Love the Way You Lie introduced a reflective Marshall Mathers, addressing his addiction head-on and thanking his fans for sticking by him. Over the next decade, Eminem transitioned into hip-hop's elder statesman, delivering staggering displays of pure technical lyricism. In 2013, his track Rap God set a Guinness World Record for the most words in a hit single, cramming 1,560 words into just over 6 minutes. He continued to adapt to the streaming era, surprise-dropping, hard-hitting, aggressive projects like Kamikaze in 2018 and music to be murdered by in 2020, proving his pen remained as sharp as ever. In November of 2022, Eminem was formally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, moving into his modern era. He continued to innovate. His project, The Death of Slim Shady Coup de Grace, served as a brilliant conceptual face-off between his mature, sober self and the chaotic alter ego that originally made him famous, proving that even after 3 decades, he remains one of the most compelling storytellers in music. Eminem's true legacy cannot be measured simply by his diamond certifications or record sales. It lies in his impact on the human condition. He took his deepest childhood traumas, his severe anxieties, and his darkest internal demons, and spun them into a complex lyrical tapestry that resonated with millions of listeners worldwide who felt entirely unseen. He proved against all odds that no matter how deep the hole is that you start in, your voice has the power to shake the entire world. What is your absolute favorite Eminem album or song of all time? In February of 1999, Eminem released the Slim Shady LP, driven by the massive lead single, My Name Is. The album became a global phenomenon, earning him his first Grammy. While kids across America bleached their hair blonde, mainstream media and parental groups were deeply horrified by his dark imagery. Eminem responded by leaning directly into the chaos. In May of 2000, he released the Marshall Mathers LP. It was a commercial juggernaut, selling a mind-blowing 1.76 million copies in its first week alone in the US, becoming the fastest-selling solo album in music history. Tracks like Stand perfectly captured the dangerous relationship between hyperfame and obsessive fandom, creating a term that was eventually added to the Oxford English Dictionary. With this fame came intense scrutiny. He faced lawsuits from his own mother and a highly publicized divorce from Kim. Protesters lined up outside his concerts, yet his fanbase only grew more loyal. By 2002, Eminem was untouchable. He released The Eminem Show, which became the best-selling album of the year globally, showcasing a more political, self-aware side. That same year, he starred in the semi-autobiographical film 8 Mile. The movie was a critical and box office triumph, but its crowning achievement was the lead single, Lose Yourself. The track spent 12 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won the Academy Award for Best Original Song in 2003, the first rap song ever to do so. Marshall Mathers had conquered radio, MTV, and Hollywood, but behind closed doors, the immense pressure of being the biggest superstar on Earth was beginning to take a lethal toll. Section 5. The Darkness and the Overdose. 9:45, 12:15. As the mid-2000s approached, the cracks began to show. His 2004 album, Encore, was heavily criticized for its erratic tone and crude humor. The reality was that Marshall was completely burning out. To cope with the exhausting demands of touring and his deteriorating personal life, he began relying heavily on a dangerous cocktail of prescription drugs, Vicodin, Valium, and Ambien. He was consuming dozens of pills a day just to function. Then, in April of 2006, Tragedy struck. His childhood best friend and mentor, Proof, was shot and killed at a Detroit nightclub. Proof was Marshall's emotional rock. The loss sent Eminem into a deep depression. He retreated entirely from the public eye, locking himself inside his mansion, where his weight ballooned and his creative output ground to a halt.